So, for any of you who have ever done an assignment for me here in the computer lab, or maybe it's for another class, but if you've ever done anything on a computer and then like somehow you totally lost all of your work, if you ever tell me that and I'm like, well, I'm really sorry, you just have to start over. If you think I'm not sympathetic, you're wrong. I am, because I am now making this video for the second time because I made this whole entire video and I posted it to YouTube. And when my sixth graders came in, it didn't work. And then I deleted all my work, so I'm doing it over again. So yeah, sometimes it stinks. But anyway, here we go. So for this lesson, the first thing you're going to do when you come to the link in Soundtrap is make sure that you've got your class period, put your last name, your initial, and we're going to be working on making some bass tracks. So name it. That's always the first thing to do. Okay. The next thing I'm going to tell you is you got to be really careful and pay attention to which track you have selected. We're going to be starting by working with this first bass track 1, but you want to make sure you have it selected, and you should see a thin purple line on the edge, and the track is a little bit darker than everything else. And also make sure that this track and drum track 1 are soloed. That means you're going to click on this little button in the track header that looks like headphones. Now, if you go to your launch pad and you click on the keys button along the top edge of the launch pad, you should see 3 rows of mostly red but some yellow buttons at the bottom 3 rows of the launch pad. The very bottom row at the bottom that's red and yellow is the row that you're going to be looking at. So if you have this set up correctly, you have this track selected, if you press those buttons down there, you should hear some notes coming out. If you do not hear any sound coming out, then you need to check your settings. So it's going to be right here. If you click on settings, then you go to MIDI settings, and you're not going to see it on mine because I don't have it set up. But in this box, you want to click on device, and make sure you click the one that says, the end of the line says MIDI out, not DAW out, not MPK. The bottom line should say Launchpad, and at the end of the line, MIDI out. And if you have MIDI out selected, even if it says no signal, don't worry about it. It'll get the signal, click OK. Now, if you go back and you have this track selected, it's soloed, and you still don't hear any sounds, then I would check to make sure that your volume's turned up, make sure your headphones are plugged in, because something else is the issue. Okay, but now if the launch pad is working, we got some bass sounds coming out. Now we can get into the assignment. Okay, so the first thing I would do is click on the cycle bar and resize this so that it's a 4-bar cycle. Now, 4 bars means we're going to start at 1 and we're going to stop at 5. So this orange bar should go all the way to 5 on the timeline. That's going to give us 4 bars. Now, the next thing you're going to do is come over here to the loop library on the right, click on the loop library. Then in the search bar at the top, type in drum full. And if you want to filter it further by genre, you can do that. You can do pop, rock, whatever you want to do. I've got some favorites marked already. So the next part is a little kind of tricky. But let's say, usually with Soundtrap, if you double click on a drum track, it just adds it in. If you are going to use a drum track that has these 2 little notes, music notes at the beginning of it, instead of double clicking on it, what I want you to do is click on it and drag it over and drop it at the beginning of drum track 1. Now, the cycle bar kind of defaults to an 8-bar phrase, so I've got to go back and reset this. But that should give you a drum track to listen to. Okay. Now, let's say you don't want to use that drum track, and so instead you want to use one that looks like this at the beginning, has these like little vertical lines. If you click on this and try to drop it into that track, it will not go in that track. If you drag it over here and just drop it, it's going to add a new track for you, which is okay. The reason it's doing that is because this is actually an audio track, and it's not, and this track is set up for MIDI. So it's not going to let you put an audio region on a MIDI track. So it's down here, but I'm just going to click on the track header and drag it up so that it's under my bass. And I'm going to double click and just rename this drum track 1. Then if I click on these 3 dots, I can delete this track, and then I'm going to solo. I did that pretty fast, so back the video up, watch it again if you need to. I'm going to resize my cycle bar. Now that you have this set up, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to create a bass track to go with these drums, and you're going to record that bass track using your Launchpad. So first of all, double check and make sure that you have this bass track 1 selected. You have it clicked on it. The little red record button is on. And you're going to be using that, again, that bottom row of the red and yellow keys on the Launchpad. So as you're listening to the drum track, I mean, it's kind of like you got a buddy who's a drummer, and you're just trying to learn how to play the bass. And so while he's doing the drumming, you're just going to mess around with some of these bass notes with some rhythms that kind of go with the drums. Just kind of mess around. This is basically like doodling, but you're going to be doing musical doodling, just playing around. And if you start doing this, you're like, oh man, this doesn't sound good, or I don't really know what to do. That's okay. That is a normal part of the process. When musicians sit down to try to come up with an idea for a song or a drum track, or in this case, a bass track, they just start off just kind of doodling, playing around until you hit on something and you're kind of like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. Now, the thing about these bass tracks is they can be really repetitive, and that's okay. They don't have to use a lot of notes. So this is only going to be 4 bars long. Let's say you finally got an idea together. Now you're going to record it. So the way you record is you come down here at the bottom, click on your record. Oops, I'm going to turn the metronome on. It's important to turn the metronome on so you know when to start. Now I'm ready, go. And there's my bass line. I can go back and listen to it. And it's always a good idea after you record to go to your region, like put your cursor over the region, click on edit, then come down to quantize and quantize the rhythms. That just helps to make sure that everything lines up with the grid. It'll help it line up with the drums. Now, the other thing, if there's still something here you don't like and you want to change it, come down here and click on piano roll. And when you go to the piano roll, I'm going to click on the arrow so that my cursor is in a pointer, and then I'm going to zoom in. So from this view, if there are any changes that I want to make, let's say I want to make this note longer, I can make those changes down here in the piano roll view. And then so this is kind of like coming up with my final draft. Cool. So there's my bass line. Now, once you have that completed, you are not finished. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to turn the solo buttons off of these track headers, and you're going to turn the solo buttons on for bass track 2 and drum track 2. Then make sure you click on the track header for bass track 2 so you're working with this track and that your record button's on. So for this, you're going to repeat the same process, but treat this like a totally different song. So go back over to your loop library, drum full, go through, find a different drum track that you want to play along with. And again, if you don't find a MIDI track and it's an audio track, then just drop the audio track in. Move that up, solo this, delete that track. I'll rename this drum track 2. So once I do that, you see now I have this track header selected, so make sure you go back and reselect the one you're going to play with. So now you've got a new drum track. And again, you go through the same thing. Musical doodling, come up with the idea, then record it, quantize it. You can go to the piano roll to make your final adjustments. And once you have 2 bass tracks recorded, you should be ready to have this finished. Now, here's the great thing about Soundtrap. You don't have to do anything to turn this assignment in. As long as you use the link that was in Google Classroom, all you have to do is sign out of Chrome, and it will automatically be shared back with me. You don't have to submit anything to the assignment in Google Classroom. You don't have to copy a link and put it in a Google form. These Soundtrap assignments are saved back with me. So once you have it finished, you are good to go. All right, good luck with this. Have fun. And I look forward to hearing what you come up with.